The man's knuckles are white on the steering wheel of a car that still smells like new plastic. He sits alone in the driver's seat while the passenger side stays empty. On the center console lies a thick stack of cash that he has just finished counting under the weak dome light. Outside the windshield, the parking lot is empty except for one flickering streetlight. He keeps his eyes forward, jaw locked, as if looking anywhere else might break the quiet rule holding the moment together. He folds the last bills once, then twice, and slips the stack into the inside pocket of a jacket that does not quite match the rest of him. He does not speak. He just sits there breathing, one hand resting on the gear shift, waiting for the courage to turn the key. The silence presses against the windows. Something has already shifted inside him, but he is not ready to name it yet. The car stays still. The light keeps flickering. The only sound left is the soft click of the lighter he rolls between his fingers without lighting it. That night in the parking lot was only the surface. Underneath it sat a number the man had been tracking for months without ever saying the figure out loud. The number was not the cash in his pocket. It was the quiet total that had been growing in the background of his life while everyone else was busy measuring themselves by the loud stuff. The cars, the dinners, the photos. The number itself will stay hidden for now, because the second you hear an exact figure, your brain starts ranking it against your own life, and ranking is the fastest way to stop listening. So the figure stays locked behind the next few minutes. What matters first is the shape of the gap it creates. Most people assume the gap between them and the richest person they know is measured in salary or house size. That assumption is comfortable because it keeps the problem outside their control. Most finance advice will tell you the opposite of what actually closed the gap for the man. Here is the thing almost every guru gets wrong. They tell you the path to becoming the quietest, rich person in your circle starts with earning more. Bigger salary, side hustle, raise, promotion, the usual list. That advice is not completely false, but it is incomplete in a way that keeps people stuck for years. Earning more without changing the internal scoreboard just raises the number on both sides of the comparison. You make more, the people around you make more, and the ranking stays the same. The real shift happens when the scoreboard itself is retired. The man did not become the person sitting in that car by chasing a higher number on a pay stub. He crossed into a different category the moment he stopped measuring his progress against the people still playing the old game. The loudest people in the room are almost always still on the scoreboard. The quiet ones have already left the stadium. I will show you the exact mechanism in a second, but first you need to know who is speaking and why this particular angle matters. Hello everyone, I'm Liam. This channel is about breaking down exactly what your money is actually doing to you in places you don't expect it to show up. And if that's useful, subscribing means you'll catch the next one too. I actually want to hear from you on this one. Drop a comment and tell me if you've ever felt the quiet shift the man felt in that parking lot. I read every one of these. Quick disclaimer. I'm not a financial advisor. This isn't personalized advice, and everyone's situation is different. Numbers are illustrations. Decisions are yours. The core idea sits inside one extended physical image. Picture a set of scales that most people keep on their kitchen counter. On one side, they place every visible marker of progress: the car, the clothes, the vacation photos, the restaurant choices. On the other side, they place the private number that only they can see. For years, the visible side keeps winning because it is heavier with social weight. Then one day, the private side starts to tip. The first real number that proves this is not theory is stranger than most people expect. According to the 2024 survey of consumer finances from the Federal Reserve, the median net worth for American households headed by someone under 35 is $39,000. That figure includes home equity, retirement accounts, and every other asset after subtracting debts. $39,000 is the halfway point. Half of the households in that age group sit below it. What it means in practice is that the person who reaches even a modest six-figure net worth while still under 35 has already moved past the majority of their peers without most of those peers noticing. The distance is real, but it is almost invisible because net worth does not announce itself the way a new car does. That invisibility is the point. The median number sits there like a quiet watermark. Once you cross it, the old conversations about making it start to feel like they belong to a different room. You still hear them, but they no longer pull the same emotional weight. The Federal Reserve data simply makes the watermark measurable. The reason the field stays uncrowded has less to do with math and more to do with a psychological switch most people never flip. The switch is simple once you see it, but it is almost never discussed in the same language as the money itself. It is the moment a person stops treating every financial decision as a performance for an invisible audience and starts treating it as maintenance of a private system. Performance is expensive. It requires constant updates, constant visibility, constant proof. Maintenance is cheaper. It only requires consistency and the willingness to look ordinary while the system compounds. Most people never flip the switch because the performance version is socially rewarded in the short term. The man had already flipped it by the time he sat in that car. A concrete example with real dollar amounts makes the hinge easier to feel. Take two people who both earn $72,000 a year after tax. Person A spends $1,800 a month on the visible markers: car payment, frequent dinners, the clothes that photograph well. After rent, food, and basics, they're able to put $400 a month into investments. Person B spends $900 a month on the same visible category and puts $1,300 a month into the same investments. After 10 years, assuming a consistent 7% average annual return and no extra contributions, Person A's investment account sits at roughly $69,000. Person B's sits at roughly $226,000. The income was identical. The difference was only the portion that never appeared in the visible side of the scales. $226,000 versus $69,000 is not a small gap. The second number is larger and more uncomfortable than the first. The same Federal Reserve data set shows that the median net worth for households headed by someone between 55 and 64 is $364,000. The jump from the under 35 median of $39,000 to the later median of $364,000 looks large on paper, yet the majority of that growth is concentrated in a minority of households. The ones who crossed in the upper half earlier and stayed consistent pulled far ahead of the median. This is the part that changes daily decisions. Once you see the long arc, the short-term trade-offs start to look different. None of this is easy for everyone in the same way. Some people start with debt that makes the first weights feel almost impossible. Acknowledging that is not an excuse and it is not a lecture. The final reframe turns the entire comparison inside out. Most people believe the goal is to become richer than the people around them. That belief keeps the old scoreboard alive. The quieter version of the goal is simply to become independent of the comparison itself. Once the comparison loses its emotional charge, the ranking stops matching. That is the actual finish line. The man is still sitting in the car. The cash is already in the jacket pocket. The silence has stretched past the point where he can pretend it is ordinary. He finally turns the key. The engine catches. He looks out the empty parking lot and gives a single small nod. Not to anyone else, only to himself. It is recognition. He understands that the stack of bills was never the real transaction. The real transaction was the private decision he had already made before the money ever changed hands. He had crossed the line. The parking lot stayed empty. The light kept flickering. And the only thing that had actually changed was the weight on the private side of the scales. The richest person you know is almost never the one who looks like it.